Do you think looking back on that season, so last season, was one of the biggest misconceptions of the Indiana Fever? Like maybe it was like locker room stuff. I feel like early on, it was
Oh my
like, they don't
gosh,
not to put words in your mouth,
there
but
was so much locker room talk. Oh my gosh, her body language, she was not happy. She hates this entire squad.
The silence from the Indiana Fever locker room has finally been broken, and it wasn't just a defense, it was a demolition. In a brand new, unfiltered interview that is currently sending shockwaves through the WNBA, Aliyah Boston didn't just stick up for her teammate Caitlin Clark. She effectively destroyed the narrative built by Sheryl Swoopes. For months, we've watched the tension build as legends of the game attempted to downplay the Caitlin Clark effect. We saw the snubs, the cryptic silences on national broadcasts, and the big dummy narratives that tried to paint Clark as anything other than the face of the league. But Aliyah Boston, the heart and soul of the Fever, has finally had enough of the disrespect aimed at her point guard. Speaking with a level of fire we've never seen from her before, Aliyah addressed the constant vicious critiques coming from the old guard. She didn't just defend Caitlin's game. She exposed the generational jealousy that has fueled these attacks. In a direct shot at the critics, led by Swoopes, Boston revealed exactly what it's like to be on the receiving end of that veteran vitriol, and why the attempt to gatekeep the sport is officially failing. But the real bombshell? Aliyah's response to the idea that Caitlin Clark doesn't deserve the hype. She broke down the box office reality of their partnership and sent a cold-blooded message to the doubters. If you're not with us, stay out of the way. Today, we're breaking down the specific quotes that left Sheryl Swoopes in the dust. We're looking at the hidden truth about the Fever's locker room chemistry and why Aliyah Boston believes this isn't just a rivalry, it's a revolution. The Queen of the Paint has spoken, and the WNBA will never be the same. Let's get into it. In late January 2026, the Indiana Fever aren't just a basketball team. They are the center of the sporting universe. And while the media has spent the last year trying to find cracks in their foundation, Aliyah Boston just used a major sit-down interview on the Bird's Eye View podcast to build a fortress around her point guard. For nearly 2 years, the Caitlin Clark discourse has been dominated by voices from the outside, most notably WNBA legend Sheryl Swoopes. From the extra-year misinformation to the 40 shots a game claims, and even the high-profile silence during Fever broadcasts, Swoopes has stood as the primary gatekeeper of the old guard. But Aliyah Boston, the 2023 Rookie of the Year and the defensive anchor of the Fever, has decided that the big dummy narratives have gone on for long enough. In a moment that is already being clipped and shared across every social platform, Boston addressed the vicious nature of the veteran critique. "I've stayed quiet because I respect my elders," Boston said, her voice steady but firm. "But when you're talking about my teammate, when you're talking about the person who is putting this league on her back and doing it with a smile while getting hit from every angle, you're not just talking about her. You're talking about us. And the idea that she's just a shooter or overhyped isn't just wrong. It's an insult to the work we put in every day." The Swoopes standard versus the new reality. Aliyah Boston didn't just defend Caitlin. She dismantled the logic used by Sheryl Swoopes. Boston pointed to the 2025 WNBA playoffs, where the Fever fought through a depleted roster and a brutal injury to Clark to reach the semifinals. During that run, Swoopes had famously called out Boston, claiming she needed to give Kelsey Mitchell some help and take her game to a different level. Boston's response in this new 2026 interview was a masterpiece of professional shade. "I hear the legends talking about taking it to another level," Aliyah noted. "But let's talk about the level the league is at now. We're playing in front of 20,000 people every night. We're on charter flights because of the interest one person brought to the table. When you try to tear that person down, you're not being a legend. You're being a hurdle. You're trying to gatekeep a door that Caitlin already blew off the hinges." Boston highlighted the hidden truth that Swoopes and other critics often ignore. The Clark effect has elevated the salaries, the visibility, and the professional standards for every woman in the league, including the ones who spent their time hating on her. By destroying the Swoopes narrative, Boston isn't just defending a friend. She's defending the economic future of the WNBA. The sisterhood reveal. What happens when the camera's off? One of the most emotional parts of the interview was Aliyah's description of her off-court bond with Caitlin. While the media tries to manufacture a racial rift or a power struggle for the face of the franchise, Boston revealed a relationship built on mutual survival. She spoke about the resurfaced gesture. A clip from 2024 where Caitlin Clark was seen offering Aliyah Boston intense emotional support despite Caitlin herself losing out on a prestigious award. People don't see the texts at 2 a.m., Aliyah shared. They don't see the way Caitlin celebrates my success more than her own. She is the ultimate teammate. So when I see a legend like Sheryl Swoopes go on a podcast and try to paint her as someone who is privileged or undeserving, it makes me realize that some people are more addicted to the drama than they are to the game. Boston's message was a total demolition of the diva narrative. She described a locker room that is more united than ever, specifically because of the us-against-the-world mentality that the veterans' criticism has forced them to adopt. The 2026 title pursuit, a new weapon. As we look toward the May 9, 2026, season opener against the Dallas Wings, Aliyah Boston revealed that she has been using the Swoopes hate as fuel for her off-season development. The big news? The three-point shot. In her January appearances in the unrivaled league, Boston has been wrecking havoc by expanding her range. She recently went 3-4-5 from beyond the arc in a single game, a development that makes the Clark-Boston pick-and-roll the most terrifying play in basketball. They said I needed to do more, Aliyah quipped. So I added a three-ball. I added 15 pounds of muscle. I added a level of conditioning that is going to make people regret ever calling us unprepared. Caitlin and I have a chemistry now that doesn't need words. We see the coverage, we hear the podcasts, and we just look at each other and nod. We know what the goal is for 2026. The box office verdict. Aliyah Boston concluded part one of her defense by addressing the financial reality of the league. She noted that while Swoopes and the old guard might have the rings, they don't have the box office gravity that this current Fever team possesses. Nike doesn't just hand out signature shoes for hype, Boston argued, referring to the upcoming CC1 release. They do it for impact. Sheryl Swoopes had a signature shoe. She should know better than anyone that you have to be undeniable to get that. Caitlin is undeniable. The sellout crowds in Toronto and Portland for our expansion games are undeniable. If you can't see that, you're not watching the game. You're just watching the mirror. Closing part one. The Fever Queen has officially spoken. Aliyah Boston has drawn a line in the sand, declaring that the era of old guard disrespect is over. She has labeled the critics as hurdles to progress and confirmed that the Indiana Fever locker room is more dangerous now than it has ever been. We're going to dive into the leaked responses. How did Sheryl Swoopes react to Aliyah's destruction of her narrative? We'll also look at the Berlin blueprint. Why USA Basketball's decision to pair Boston and Clark as the starting frontcourt for the World Cup has the dummies in a frenzy. And finally, we'll see the hidden footage of Aliyah's new three-point stroke that is set to change the WNBA hierarchy forever. While the old guard continues to push the narrative that the Indiana Fever is a one-woman show, Aliyah Boston just used her platform to highlight the hidden truth about their success. During the January 2026 sit-down, Boston addressed the criticism from Sheryl Swoopes head-on, specifically the claim that she and the rest of the Fever roster were just along for the ride. It's easy to talk from a podcast studio, Aliyah noted, but it's a lot harder to explain why the math doesn't work for the haters. People say Caitlin is the only reason for the success, but they ignore the fact that my assist numbers reached a career high last season. They ignore that we led the league in offensive efficiency during the second half of the year. When you call us dummies or support staff, you aren't just disrespecting us, you're showing that you don't actually understand modern basketball. Boston's point is backed by the 2025 data. She averaged a career-high 3.7 assists per game, ranking her near the top of all forwards in the league. She argued that the Clark effect isn't about Caitlin doing everything. It's about Caitlin creating a gravity that allows everyone else to become the best versions of themselves. The three-point revolution, wreaking havoc in Miami. Perhaps the most vicious part of Aliyah's defense was her revelation about her new offensive arsenal. For 2 years, critics like Swoopes and certain segments of the media have pigeonholed Aliyah Boston as a traditional, paint-only center. They claimed that her lack of spacing was the weak link in the Fever's high-octane offense. But in the unrivaled 3-on-3 league this month, Aliyah has been a revelation. Just weeks ago, she sent a message to the entire WNBA by going 3-4-5 from the three-point line in a single game. I heard them, Aliyah said with a confident smirk. I heard them say I was too slow for the new era. I heard them say I couldn't stretch the floor. So I went to work. If you thought the pick and roll with Caitlyn was hard to guard before, imagine what happens when I'm popping to the perimeter and knocking down triples. This isn't just about my game. It's about making sure the Swoopes narrative has nowhere left to hide. You can't call me a traditional big when I'm leading the league in three-point percentage during the offseason. The resurfaced gesture and the locker room bond. A major flashpoint in this interview was Aliyah's reaction to a viral, resurfaced clip from 2024. The footage showed Caitlin Clark offering Aliyah intense emotional support during a post-game interview where Aliyah was visibly struggling. Despite the media's attempts to frame Caitlin as an attention seeker, the clip showed a teammate who was entirely focused on her sister's well-being. That clip isn't an exception, it's the rule, Aliyah explained. People want to talk about white privilege and racial rifts, but they don't see what happens when the locker room door closes. Caitlin is the first person to celebrate my blocks. She's the first person to call me after a bad game. When Sheryl Swoopes stays silent on a broadcast while Caitlin is breaking records, it doesn't hurt Caitlin. It hurts the integrity of the game. It shows a lack of professionalism that we, as the new generation, just don't have time for. Boston's defense of the sisterhood is a total demolition of the idea that the Fever locker room is divided. She argued that the veteran vitriol has actually acted as a bonding agent, forcing the young core of Boston, Clark, and Lexi Hull to become an unbreakable unit. The Berlin Blueprint, USA Basketball's new frontcourt. The conversation then turned to the upcoming 2026 World Cup in Berlin. While the old guard has been lobbying for legacy veterans to retain their starting spots, the recent USA Basketball training camp in Durham told a different story. Reports have emerged that coach Kara Lawson has been experimenting with a Fever-centric lineup, featuring Clark and Boston as the primary engines of the second unit. Berlin is going to be a statement, Aliyah warned. The international game is faster, more physical, and more technical. The old way of just overpowering teams in the paint is gone. USA Basketball knows that the future is built on playmaking and spacing. Pairing me with Caitlin on the international stage isn't just a coaching choice. It's a reality check for everyone who said we couldn't play together at an elite level. We're taking that Fever chemistry, and we're putting a gold medal on it. The billion-dollar verdict, leverage in the CBA. Aliyah Boston also addressed the 2026 Collective Bargaining Agreement, CBA, negotiations. She noted that the Swoopes style of criticism, which often focuses on the disrespect of veterans, is actually a distraction from the real goal, financial equality. We're fighting for charter flights. We're fighting for million-dollar salaries. We're fighting for the respect this league has earned, Aliyah stated. When legends of the game use their platforms to tear down the very person who is bringing in the sponsors and the TV deals, they are actively hurting our leverage. Caitlin Clark is the best thing that ever happened to the WNBA's bank account. If you're a big dummy who can't see that, you shouldn't be involved in the negotiations. Boston's willingness to talk about the business of the game is a sign of her maturity. She isn't just a player anymore. She is a stakeholder in a billion-dollar industry, and she is done letting bitter narratives devalue her product. The final warning, the 2026 opener. As the interview wound down, Aliyah issued a final, cold-blooded warning to the Dallas Wings and the rest of the league ahead of the May 9th season opener. They think they've seen the best of us, she said. They think the 2025 semifinals was our ceiling. But with Caitlin healthy, with my new range, and with the chemistry we've built through all this noise, 2026 is going to be a nightmare for the rest of the league. We aren't playing for respect anymore. We're playing for the trophy. And if you're still listening to the podcasts instead of watching the film, you're already behind. Closing part 2. The Fever Queen has officially laid out the blueprint for 2026. Aliyah Boston has destroyed the Swoopes narrative, exposed the hidden truths of the locker room, and confirmed that the Indiana Fever are no longer up-and-comers. They are the empire. We're going to look at the Swoopes response. Did Sheryl finally break her silence after being called out by Aliyah? We'll also dive into the Berlin roster leak. Did Caitlin and Aliyah officially secure the starting spots for Team USA? And finally, we'll ask the billion-dollar question. With the 2026 expansion draft looming, can the Fever keep this sisterhood together, or will the dummies finally get what they want and see this team ripped apart? By January 2026, the silence from Sheryl Swoopes has become louder than her previous critiques. After Aliyah Boston's clinical demolition of the old guard narrative, the sports world has been waiting for a clack back that never came. Why? Because as Aliyah pointed out in her Bird's Eye View interview, the facts have officially become undeniable. Stephen A. Smith recently noted that the Swoopes narrative died the moment the 2026 WNBA schedule was released, showing a record 44-game slate with the Indiana Fever featured in 38 national TV windows. You can't call a player unearned when they are the reason the lights are on. Smith barked. The hidden truth is that the veteran vitriol hasn't just failed to humble Caitlin Clark. It has backfired, turning Aliyah Boston into a vocal, vicious leader who is no longer afraid to call out the big dummies in the media. Aliyah's defense has effectively created a no-fly zone around the Fever locker room. Anyone coming for Caitlin now has to go through the most dominant defensive force in the league first. The Berlin Blueprint, a new world order. The biggest story of early 2026 is the USA basketball senior national team roster for the World Cup in Berlin. For years, the team was a legacy club, where veterans held spots based on past glory. But under new head coach Kara Lawson, the Berlin Blueprint is all about the future. Leaked reports from the December training camp in Durham suggest that the chemistry between Clark and Boston was so destructive to the practice squad that Lawson has no choice but to start them together in the 2026 qualifiers. They aren't just playing basketball, they're playing chess at 100 miles per hour, one assistant coach noted. By pairing the Fever connection on the global stage, USA Basketball is sending a message to the rest of the world, and to the dummies at home. The transition is over. The new era has arrived. In Berlin, the world won't see a rookie and a veteran. They will see a two-woman wrecking crew that is redefining the international game. The CBA war, $1 million or strike. While the on-court drama heats up, the off-court war for the soul of the WNBA is reaching a boiling point. As of January 2026, the league and the players' union are in a status quo moratorium after failing to reach a new collective bargaining agreement, CBA. The stakes? Billion-dollar stakes. The league's most recent offer includes a maximum base salary of $1 million, a staggering jump from the $249,000 max of 2024. But the players, led by the fearless advocacy of stars like Aliyah Boston and Nneka Ogwumike, are demanding more. They want 30% of gross revenue and a $10.5 million salary cap per team. "We aren't asking for a seat at the table anymore," Aliyah stated during her interview. "We are the table." The Caitlin Clark effect has given the players the ultimate leverage. The owners know that if the players go on strike in 2026, they aren't just losing games. They are losing the greatest economic surge in the history of women's sports. Aliyah's destruction of the old narrative isn't just about basketball. It's about ensuring that the women who are actually moving the needle, like her and Caitlin, are paid what they are worth. The unrivaled proof, the three-point queen. If there was any doubt left about Aliyah's evolution, her performance in the unrivaled 3-on-3 league in Miami this month has erased it. In a viral clip from January 10th, Aliyah went 3-4-5 from deep, finishing with 21 points and 10 rebounds in just 16 minutes of play. This is the hidden weapon that Sheryl Swoopes never saw coming. By adding a reliable perimeter shot, Aliyah has become the ultimate cheat code for Caitlin Clark. "If you double Caitlin, I'm open for the three. If you stay with me, she's going to the rim," Aliyah explained. This isn't just growth. It's a tactical revolution that makes the Fever the heavy favorites for the 2026 title. The resurfaced gesture. The final word on character. To wrap up her defense, Aliyah pointed back to that resurfaced 2024 clip of Caitlin supporting her during a moment of personal doubt. She used it to highlight the vicious double standard Caitlin faces. "People call her privileged because of the media attention," Aliyah said, "but they ignore the privilege of having a teammate who cares more about your heart than her own highlights." Boston's final verdict was a masterclass in perspective. She argued that the old guard is so focused on what Caitlin took from them, the attention, the records, the legacy, that they completely missed what she gave them. A future where the WNBA is no longer a charity case, but a global powerhouse. The 2026 outlook: championship or bust. As we look toward the May 9th opener, the Indiana Fever aren't just a team. They are an empire in the making. With Aliyah Boston's new range, Caitlin Clark's healthy return, and a locker room that is united by the hate, the 2026 season is set to be the greatest show on earth. The dummies can keep talking, Aliyah concluded. The podcast can keep recording. But on May 9th, the ball is going to go up. and the truth is going to be written on the scoreboard. We're coming for the ring, and we're coming for everything they said we couldn't have. And that is the final, definitive breakdown of Aliyah Boston's total demolition of the Sheryl Swoopes narrative. The Fever Queen has spoken, the Berlin blueprint is set, and the 2026 CBA war is just beginning. But now, I want to hear from you. Has Aliyah Boston officially ended the debate, or is the old guard right to be skeptical of the new generation? Is a $1 million max salary enough, or should the players hold out for a bigger piece of the pie? Sound off in the comments below. If you're riding with the Fever and you think the 2026 title is already theirs, drop a hashtag FeverRising in the chat. If you think the veterans still have a point, let me hear your argument. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, because with the expansion draft and the World Cup qualifiers coming up, this is the only place for the unfiltered truth on the WNBA. Thanks for watching, and stay locked in for the next one. The final verdict: join the Fever revolution. The silence has been shattered, and Aliyah Boston just drew a line in the sand that the old guard can no longer ignore. We are witnessing a historic transformation in the WNBA, a billion-dollar shift where the players are finally taking control of their own narratives and their own bank accounts. But as the 2026 season approaches, the biggest question isn't what Aliyah or Sheryl think. It's what you think. Is Aliyah Boston right to call out the big dummies who are gatekeeping the sport? Or do you believe the legends of the game have earned the right to be critical of the new generation? This isn't just a debate about basketball. It's a battle for the soul of the league. I want you to head down to the comments right now and let your voice be heard. If you're standing with the Fever Sisterhood and you're ready to see Aliyah and Caitlin dominate the 2026 World Cup in Berlin, drop a hashtag FeverRising below. But if you think the veterans are being unfairly silenced and that the Clark effect is being overblown, I want to see your argument in the chat. Are we looking at the greatest duo in basketball history, or is the Swoopes narrative actually rooted in some truth? I'm reading every single comment, and I want to see which side of history you're on. Before you go, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. With the expansion draft for the Toronto Tempo and Portland Fire just weeks away, and the CBA war reaching a bitter impasse, this is the only place for the unfiltered truth on the WNBA. Don't get left behind. Join our community, stay locked in for the daily breakdowns, and let's watch the empire rise. Thanks for watching.